Hi, I'm Pastor Mira, and this is Sermon in 3 Minutes. This past week it was snowy, but we continued our sermon series Once Upon a Time. This week, looking at the gospel and the movie Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins was first written in 1934 by Pamela Travers, and then turned into the Disney classic in 1964. It had 13 Academy Award nominations and won 4, quickly becoming a Disney classic for so many of us. The movie Mary Poppins is about the Banks family. And the family was really struggling. Mary Poppins comes to help them find unity, to find joy, and to end the dysfunction that's going on in this family. Dad is really concerned and focused on work. Mom is involved in women's suffrage, and the children were stubborn and mischievous. But Mary Poppins descends on the scene from heaven, and she brings new life and energy, much like Paul did to the Corinth community long time ago in the New Testament. The Corinth community was behaving badly. There was jealousy and envy everywhere. And in 2 Corinthians, he wrote them a letter that really called for the ministry of reconciliation. He spoke about how we have so much brokenness in our world, but because of Christ, that brokenness can be mended and come back together. You know, reconciliation is really the heart of the gospel of Jesus. It's about reuniting God with humankind and humankind with one another, healing our brokenness. That's what the Banks family needed. That's what the people in Corinth needed. And today, that's so what our nation needs. You know, the message of unity is what Mary Poppins brought to life in games, both with the children and adults, caring for them and helping them to learn how they could support and love one another along the way. Working with Bert and the chimney sweeps, working with the penguins to serve one another, and even the people in the park who cared for the children and returned them home. You know, this weekend we also celebrated Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King Jr. was about reconciliation, both in his words and in his actions. He called for all doors to be open to all children, red and yellow, black and white. He called that it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile, if you're Christian or Protestant, but that all children and all people should be created equal. From the steps at the Lincoln Memorial in the March for Civil Rights, he shared these words: "With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day." It's part of his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And that was taped while Mary Poppins was filming. You know, even in our church today, our bishops recently wrote a letter on the inclusion and the welcoming of LGBTQ people in our congregations. At times, people of LGBTQ have felt unloved and not welcomed, sometimes even by God, but sometimes also by us because of hurtful words. The bishops really are calling us to doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree on the issue, but that all of our conversations should have honor, respect, and include people with different views, remembering we are all God's children. So this week, I encourage you to stand beside someone who feels broken by the words of the world. Help them to feel God's love and not the judgment of Christ. Help them understand and remember that God loves them, and God calls all of us to reconciliation. Whether you were back in Corinth with Paul, whether you worked with the Banks family, or whether it was MLK inspiring our nation and calling for reconciliation. May you find and share the love of Christ with those who most need it this week. That's a bit of the message from Mary Poppins this past week. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week.